Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about oiling your Palmer 80. Okay, so we go through this whole process of assembling the gun, troubleshooting and debugging it. Sometimes we have difficulty just getting the pins in, right? That can sometimes be some difficult, be a difficulty. Um, Other times you go to put the slide on and the slide's not going on, it's too tight. You got to get under the rails. You got to basically grind down the underside of the rails. Sometimes your barrel and your slide don't match up together. You gotta file your slide a little bit where at the barrel slide lockup. So as you're going through all these things, it's very easy to forget the basic thing of oiling the gun. Okay, and I'm guilty of it. The way I experienced this is I had built the gun. Actually, it was two guns. I was building two guns together. And I got both of them working, right? So I went through the whole troubleshooting, debugging process, got them working. They each shot about 100 rounds good. After that, the trigger started getting really hard on me. I started getting a really stiff trigger. It almost got to the point where I couldn't break it. I couldn't get it to go click. I had to actually remove the back plate in order to get the slide off, okay? So I could try to figure out what was going on. I completely changed out the trigger group on both of the pistols. Okay, put in new trigger groups on both of them. Went out there, shot it, did about 100 rounds on each of them. Again, around 100 rounds, the trigger started getting really stiff. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? It's a little weird. So I said, one second, you know what? Let me try just oiling it. So I remembered I had not oiled the gun. I didn't expect it to actually fix it. Took a little gun oil. I sprayed right here where the connector and the trigger bar meet. Okay, then I also put a little bit on the rails. Okay, a little bit on the slide. While I was in there, basically I just sprayed a little bit down the slide. But the main thing is I needed to put some on where the trigger bar and the connector meet. Put the gun back together, squeeze the trigger. The trigger's breaking beautifully. That's all it needed. It just needed some oil. I'm never gonna forget that lesson, okay? Because I spent a couple of hours trying to, changing triggers out, thinking about it, and all it needed was a little gun oil right there. Because here's what happened when you squeeze your trigger, right? The trigger the trigger bar comes back and it basically rides your connector bar down, okay? And as it comes down, it drops your sear, and that releases the firing pin. So that as that trigger bar is riding the connector down, that's the take up that you feel on your trigger. Okay, and if it's not oiled or if it's not smooth, and here's the thing, I've never. Some people will polish the connector. I've never bothered to do it. I just oil it, and if I had polished it, it probably would have worked, right? Because it was probably a little rough. Okay, so it was a combination of the connector being rough and me not oiling it. The combination of the two made it really hard to squeeze. If I had polished it, it probably would have worked. If I had oiled it, which is all it took to get it to work, and once I oiled it and it was working, then yeah, after several hundred rounds later, it broke itself in, and it's less of an issue. Okay, so remember to oil your gun. Now, other issues that you might have issues of your shark fin, basically, pressing up, pressing up against the top of the slide, the safety plunger. It may need to be basically filed down just a little bit, smoothed out a little bit. But before I do that, I'll just take some oil and I'll just spray this area over here where the shark fin, basically rides, presses on the plunger. In fact, if I'm having that type of a problem, I'm just gonna just soak this whole area over here. Because again, now later on I can go back and wipe it down. I just want to get it to the point where it's working, and then I can go back and remove the excess. Okay, so now one of the things that you generally don't want to do is get oil inside the firing pin channel, because basically, you can have basically that can prevent the firing pin from working properly. However, as you're going through the debugging process, trying to get it to work, sometimes I will put a little bit of oil into the into where the firing pin lug is over here. Just put a little bit, let it roll in. Don't drench it. Don't sit there and spray this. Just put a little bit in there, just in case there's a little bit of resistance inside the firing pin sleeve. Okay, that's basically that's the firing pin lug, and there's the back of the firing pin sleeve over here. Just spray a little bit in there. Again, this is part of the debugging process. This is not something I would normally do with a factory gun, all right? But however, in most cases, we're dealing with aftermarket parts. We're trying to get stuff to fit, so just all the damn thing. Go back and later on, once the gun's working, you can remove the excesses. Another thing that I will do is basically drop some oil in here. Gonna drop some oil over here where the barrel lockup is, right? Because basically you see this area where that's worn out over here. That's an area where the top of the barrel meets your slide. All that over there. I'll actually let the oil run like I hold like this, spray down, let the oil run inside, and just all the whole thing, all the barrel. So basically, run it, get the gun working, and once it's working, then go back and remove the excess. So this is more of a kind of a reminder, all right? I realize I'm coming pretty close to saying the whole damn thing, okay? Oil almost every surface of it. I'm getting close to that. I'm not exactly saying that, but I'm getting pretty close to that. Especially if you're having a problem, and then see where you go from there. Because I've had, first of all, like you can see this barrel, you can see how the paint's coming off. So clearly that's an area where the two meet. So that's another thing to be aware of. The Cerakote that they put on these barrels, that can cause extra resistance. Okay, so until that paint comes off, because the way they color these barrels is not the same way that Glock colors their barrels. Okay, these barrels are just basically painted over with Cerakote. So that's why when I order barrels now, all my barrels are like stainless steel or tin, but nothing with paint on it. Okay, because a painted barrel is just going to give you resistance, and the paint on the barrel is going to come off anyway. So hope that video was useful to you guys. If you're not a member of the channel, subscribe, hit the bell button so you get notifications. I'll talk to you all soon.